Harry, let's start in Arizona. I want you to lay out for us what these indictments are, what this whole thing means, because so much has happened. There's a lot of people going, wait a minute. What was the fake elector scheme again?
It's true, and it sort of washes over us. So much is happening today. But look, these are serious charges. This is a brazen attempt to steal the election from the rightful winner. The 11 electors get together and say, we'll sign certificates saying we're the rightful electors in Arizona, which, of course, they aren't, and they know they aren't. And they conspire to do it with some pretty high-up associates of the former president, including Mark Meadows, including Jenna Ellis, including Rudy Giuliani. And, you know, we see it as just another chapter, but really, if you stop and think about it, it's a serious effort to steal an election, holds serious penalties, 5 years or so, and involves people who could really give damaging testimony against the former president, who is unindicted conspirator #1 in this one.
Mark, 2 weeks before these fake electors signed that certificate, Donald Trump himself called into an Arizona hearing on election integrity. I want you to watch this clip.
I just say that I want to thank you. We're going to win this thing. We're not giving up ever. We lost Arizona by 9,000 votes. That's a tiny fraction. Now, that would be a half a day, a couple of hours of checking. And we didn't lose the state. We didn't lose the state. We won it by a lot. I want to thank Rudy and his team for doing such an incredible job and for having the courage to do it. Many lawyers had to leave because they were threatened. We are going to fight. We're taking it up all the way. We have additional cases being filed probably tomorrow in Wisconsin and in Georgia. And they're good cases. They're very strong cases by great lawyers and with great facts.
Those two people you saw in the video were two of the names Harry just mentioned, Rudy Giuliani and Jenna Ellis. Mark, I want you to walk us through this, because when we say our democracy is on the ballot, that washes over a lot of people. And they're like, yeah, what do you mean? We mean this. And how important is this in terms of this case going to court?
Well, I mean, on an individual basis, I mean, as Harry said, I mean, this stands alone. I mean, this is an extremely damning case. And if you look at it in its entirety, from Georgia to Nevada to Michigan to the January 6th case to the whole gamut of this whole thing, it is very sprawling, and it's damning, you know, both collectively, certainly, but also in its individual, you know, cases. And I think what's interesting about the Arizona case is that it adds another level or another layer of all of this. I mean, to some degree, like the Georgia case, it's a local case. It's a state case, right? I mean, it's outside the reach of the federal government and the pardon power, certainly. Also, like Georgia, if there's a trial or when there's a trial, it's going to be televised. So, I mean, these are two specific to the two states that are at work here. So, look, it kind of localizes the issue in some ways. And yes, I mean, I think it's damning, but also it's damning in a unique way that people in Arizona can pay attention to. And look, I mean, it's obviously a very hotly contested state. And, you know, again, so I think if you sort of look at it like both in terms of a small and a big issue, and it just sprawled in many directions, this is another instance of that.
Glenn, what do you think about this?
You know, I was trying to diagram out, Steph, all of the different defendants and all of the different... You can't read my notes. I could be a doctor with handwriting like that.
I mean, let me tell you, Glenn Kirshner has got some nerdy notes. I'm so glad to see you in person. Wow.
So, Steph, here's the thing. As a prosecutor, when I was handling gang cases and RICO cases, I wanted to develop as many cooperating witnesses as I could, right? And what did we do? We tried to pressure people. We tried to drive wedges between people. We have a saying in D.C. circles, pressure bursts pipes. Now, look at the charges against somebody like a Rudy Giuliani, right? I have to go to my chart here. Rudy is an indicted co-conspirator in Georgia. He's an unindicted co-conspirator in D.C. He's an indicted co-conspirator in Arizona. He's an unindicted co-conspirator in Michigan based on the new reporting. He has his law license suspended in New York and D.C. pending disbarment. He owes the, election workers $148 million. How much more pressure can some of these people take before they decide, okay, I'm going to give up the ghost. It's time for me to cooperate. Jenna Ellis, I think, is a really interesting one because she pleaded guilty down in Georgia. Now she pops up as an indicted co-conspirator in Arizona. Usually defendants like to resolve their cases globally. They like to plead guilty in all of their cases so they can get as much benefit with the prosecutors.
Maybe she didn't see this one coming.
Maybe she didn't, but I would have thought they would have, because Chesbrough, right? Chesbrough cooperated down in Georgia. He's an unindicted co-conspirator. What does that say? He's probably cooperating in Arizona. That's why I need the diagram. It's hard to make all of these pieces fit at the moment.
What does an unindicted co-conspirator mean? Because that's what Donald Trump is in Arizona, and he's also an unindicted co-conspirator in Michigan. So what does it mean? What does it mean, A, and does it mean down the line he could be indicted?
Exactly. Remember, Donald Trump is the indicted defendant in the D.C. election interference case, and there are multiple unindicted co-conspirators like Mark Meadows and Rudy Giuliani and Sidney Powell, John Eastman and Jeffrey Clark, the corrupt former DOJ official. What does it mean? It means they're going to be indicted at some point.
They can't indict him until some of these people flip on him?
They don't. I think the reason Jack Smith is waiting in the D.C. case is because he wants to bang out the Trump case, resolve it, then he'll go after the unindicted co-conspirators. But let me add this to complicate matters even more, Steph. Just because you're an unindicted co-conspirator doesn't mean you will necessarily be indicted. Like I say, lots of moving pieces.
Okay, not necessarily. But he's now facing this on top of 88 criminal charges. If you are on Donald Trump's big legal team, right, he's got some in New York tomorrow, he's got some in D.C., what are you telling him tonight?
Please don't fire me. But in addition to that, yeah, look, this does...
Why would he? He needs them now more than ever.
No, but that's a good way to get a delay. It's the final sort of stratagem of scoundrels. But put that to the side.
Explain that. No.
Sure. One thing that someone does for a last gasp effort to get a delay is fire their counsel, which they're permitted to do, and then say, I've got my new counsel and I need that person to get up to speed. Judge Merchan will not permit it. He'll say, you have two counsel there, it'll be fine. But let me get back to this big diagram and try to simplify it. Two cohorts of indicted people. The 11 folks in Arizona who are unlike the Trump loyalists in Washington. They have careers to consider. They really are low-hanging fruit to cooperate, against whom some of them actually spoke with Trump, but certainly the other sort of 7. And now you go to that 7, the Jenna Ellis's of the world, the Rudy Giuliani's, everything that Glenn says holds, and one more thing, they are broke. And Jenna Ellis is broke. So the pressure is also financial pressure to defend this case. And what do you do if you're broke and you have a lot of pressure? You cooperate where you can. And that means that this case increases the already intense pressure on Trump.
Pressure bursts pipes.
Yep.
Mark, this Arizona story is coming out while all of these other Trump cases are going on. It feels like a legal tsunami. And we are now just over 6 months away from the election. What are voters likely to make of all of this?
Well, I mean, I think, there's a big blur factor to this whole thing. There is a big maw of legal stuff that is sort of washing over everything. But if you sort of buy the probably somewhat simplistic notion, but still an important notion, that if the conversation is about Trump and Trump's legal troubles and things that Trump says on a day-to-day, and they're not focused on, say, in Arizona, things like the border or inflation, things that maybe Biden has been vulnerable on. This is all a very, very good set of facts for the Biden campaign, and it's not good for Biden or for Trump to be talked about in this way over a long period of time. I mean, it also looks like this is going to be a long haul. I mean, it is just an exhausting thing to try to follow, but it's also, as has been mentioned here, it's extremely poignant. It's extremely central to the democratic process. And, as every day passes, it's going to be clear that this is going to be a major story going forward in this election.
Glenn, could this Arizona indictment affect any of the other cases for Fani Willis, for Jack Smith?
Oh, it sure could. There's a lot of cross-pollination of defendants. And so I was a little surprised down in the Georgia RICO case. 19 were indicted, 4 pleaded guilty pretty early on, and then all cooperation seems to have stopped. And 15 are pending trial in Georgia. But now there are indicted defendants in common. the Georgia case and now the Arizona case, and because pressure bursts pipes, it may very well be that this will help produce more cooperating witnesses, because if some of these people plead guilty in the Arizona case, those same defendants who are pending charges in Georgia will almost certainly want to resolve the Georgia case as well. So it could help the Fani Willis case.
The Georgia case, why is it quiet right now, right? The last time we were talking about it, we weren't talking about any of the defendants. We weren't talking about Donald Trump. It was all about Fani Willis and her conduct. It's kind of been dead quiet since.
It has. And there was that long distraction, right? And now that that is behind us, I would expect to see, for example, Judge McAfee finally set a trial date. You know, there was a request long ago from Fani Willis for an August 2nd trial date for at least the first wave of RICO defendants. I don't know that you can try all 15 at once. We usually sort of parcel out the RICO defendants when we have that many, and we do a series of trials. But it's been radio silence. We don't even have a trial date set down in Georgia. That is probably going to change soon.
My administration is also taking on junk fees, those hidden surcharges too many companies use to make you pay more. For example, we're making airlines show you the full ticket price up front, refund your money if your flight is canceled or delayed.
I'm here for that. The president has officially made good on that commitment. Today, his administration unveiled 2 new rules for airlines requiring automatic cash refunds and prohibiting surprise fees. It is the latest move in Biden's push to protect American consumers. Back with us tonight in person to discuss, former Democratic Congressman Max Rose of New York, and Reed Galen is here, co-founder of the Lincoln Project. He also has worked on a number of GOP campaigns, including John McCain, Arnold Schwarzenegger, and George W. Bush. Max, today we've got these new airline rules. We're talking about it here tonight. But by the time these benefits kick in, are people going to even realize that it was President Biden that made that happen?
Sure. And I think it's the responsibility of the Biden team to remind them over again. What's been fascinating with this, the announcement and now the implementation, is the Republican response, which is, oh, he's playing politics. He's playing politics because he and his administration did something that helps people, helps their pocketbooks, helps the average person in a frustrating moment. This is ridiculous. He's playing politics. What the hell do you think he's supposed to be doing?
What the hell is your impression of Republicans?
That's
really how we talk.
It's just like the ultimate dork. But in reality, though, this is why all too often in today's modern political discourse, you actually can't listen to the opposition too much, because no matter what you do, they will stand up and criticize it. Either the administration is being elitist and ignoring the pocketbook concerns of people, or when they're doing that, they're just pandering. They're just pandering and playing politics. This good policy is good politics, and this is both, and we should celebrate that.
Do you think it'll impact President Biden in November?
I don't know about that, but the good news is, to Max's point, you have someone like a Pete Buttigieg, who's Secretary of Transportation. This rule came out of the Transportation Department, so it wouldn't surprise me if you see Secretary Pete out on the road a lot. He has been already. And so, look, do I think that it will help in November? Sure. I think it's all additive. I think it's, as Max said, this is good for people. I mean,
he's doing something while Trump is either sitting in Trump Tower today having no campaign events, or sitting in court in a criminal trial.
Right. Yes, it's better to be doing something for the people than, yes, going through this yet again.
You could be on the trail or be on trial. Yesterday was a primary day in Pennsylvania, a closed primary, no surprise. President Biden won, Donald Trump won. But on the Republican side, Nikki Haley received more than 155,000 votes. Max, the Biden administration thinks that is a good sign for him. Sure. What do you think?
You're absolutely correct. I mean, what we saw throughout the Republican primary, because it was quite obvious that Donald Trump was the presumptive nominee for quite some time, and nonetheless, over and over again, roughly 40% of the electorate resoundingly said they are anti-Trump, and in exit polls said that they will not be voting for Donald Trump in the general election. And now we have this ultimate example of that, which is even after she dropped out. they're willing to go to the polls and still vote for her, not because I don't believe it's any resounding support for Nikki Haley herself, but because it is an opportunity for them to express opposition to Donald Trump. And that fervor, not just within persuadables, not just within the Democratic base, but within Republican primary voters. These are traditional Republican voters who are so anti-Trump. That's a very good sign. For
and PA matters. What do you think?
I think that what matters most is not only that she got these votes, but where she got most of them, which were those collar counties around Philadelphia that are consistently purple in nature, right? They're always a battleground in this very, very important state. He was basically breaking even with Nikki Haley, who has been DOA for 6 weeks, right? And if we look back all the way to Iowa, right? And what did the Iowa voters say about Nikki Haley, which is if Nikki Haley wasn't going to be their nominee, they were going to vote for Joe Biden. And so I think that Trump has a massive issue. These voters are very likely to do one of two things: stay home, which Trump can't afford, or vote for Biden, which Trump can't afford. And I think, as you noted just a minute ago, he is sitting in a courtroom. He is not campaigning. He doesn't have the money to be running ads. And so I think that if Pennsylvania starts to stretch, what's Trump going to do? And not only this, who is he going to appeal to get Haley's voters back? He said he doesn't want rhinos like me. He doesn't want Haley's voters. Like, who exactly is going to vote for Donald Trump in numbers that get him back to the presidency? The only thing he has going for him is his name is Donald Trump. That's it.
You know who is going to vote for him? Bill Barr. And Donald Trump just tooled on him tonight. I want to share something. It's very rare that I read one of Donald Trump's social media posts, but tonight I feel inclined, where he wrote, wow, former AG Bill Barr, who let a lot of great people down by not investigating voter fraud in our country, has just endorsed me for president, despite the fact that I called him weak, slow-moving, lethargic, gutless, and lazy. Trump's actually right here. OK, he has said and done all those terrible things to Bill Barr. Bill Barr knows the danger that Donald Trump is to this country, yet he endorsed him. Can you explain to me why? It's like the revenge of Chris Sununu.
I really can't understand it. You know, is he trying to make a buck? Is he so insecure that he needs continued relevance? What Bill Barr came face to face with at the conclusion of the Trump presidency was Trump's authoritarian fascist nature and his absolute disregard for our democratic norms, values, and system, and nonetheless still turns around and supports him. But forget about Bill Barr. What matters is all the other Bill Barrs out there in the Republican Party right now who, despite Chris Sununu, is a fantastic example that I'd like to raise their hand during the primary and express their fervent opposition to Donald Trump, talked about how dangerous he is, but now they see themselves slowly walking towards him. But what matters the most, though, not Bill Barr, not Chris Sununu, it's those 155,000 Nikki Haley voters in Pennsylvania, and it is that hardcore, persuadable middle who really wants nothing to do with the extremist MAGA base. And that's what's going to matter in this election.
I think Bill Barr and Chris Sununu and a lot of these people are hoping they stay out of the gulag if Trump comes back. You know what? That's not how it works in these kinds of movements. Bill Barr will have terrible things happen to him if Donald Trump.
Trump's coming for him.
Trump's coming for all of us. Let's be clear about that. Like, these people do not forget. And Barr has done the one thing even after he's now engaging in the Tim Scott-like ritual humiliation, which is he betrayed Trump. And in these kinds of movements, betrayal is the ultimate sin. He'll never forgive Barr.
It's so embarrassing that Trump.
Oh, God.
I mean, it's
really.
Bill Barr should never say anything publicly.
No. But you know what? He did give a major speech where he basically said that he didn't think that democracy was a great form of government. So really, maybe we shouldn't be surprised.